With over 3 billion gamers all around the world, how did such a small hobby become one of the world's most thriving industries? What exactly got us to this point? What might our past tell us of what's to come for the future of this form of entertainment? I'm David Penta. Stick around to find out on today's episode of 5-Minute Flashback. What is commonly accepted as the first video game was made in 1958 by physicist William Higginbotham. What Higginbotham created was a tennis game called Tennis for Two, and it was designed as a two-player experience where both players would try to outscore the other in a friendly match of tennis. A game like this is very simple, sure, and it plays exactly how you'd expect, but it tells us the reasons why we play video games today. Video games are an experience you can have fun, escape, and you can share it with others. And that's true for this game, as well as the multi-million-dollar releases that we have today. The Atari 2600 was the first true success story for consoles, inspired by the Magnavox Odyssey, which was a commercial failure. The Atari was a console marketed for everyone, with only a couple of buttons for players to get used to, and a solid collection of simple games that could produce hours of fun. This, being a console though, meant that it was designed to play multiple different games that had to be purchased separately alongside your Atari console. This is the first true moment that people realized video games could not only be tons of fun, but also truly profitable. Remember, we're out here playing Pong and Space Invaders in arcades at this point. These games were not only cheap to make, but also could be made relatively quickly with the existing technology. Making video games in such a growing market was an extremely good idea for businesses. Many, and I mean many, tried to recapture the lightning in a bottle of Atari's success with the 2600 system, with tons of developers making games that weren't just cheap to make, but really felt cheap to play. Gamers had standards at this point, and they grew tired of games that came out with all this hype and excitement just to look at a confusing collection of pixels meant to resemble E.T., the alien, completing objectives that just made no sense. Gamers love that they can just pick up a controller and play a game without needing to be an abstract artist to understand what is happening on the screen. This oversaturation led to a decline in video game sales, historically titled as the video game crash of 1983. Video game sales went from over 3 billion to 100 million, a 97% decline. Gamers had lost faith in companies making solid games, and it took a couple innovative businesses a couple years to really figure out what was next to make video games great again. One of these businesses was Nintendo. Nintendo was originally known for making toys for kids, but what made them so famous was Super Mario and the Nintendo Entertainment System, commonly referred to today as the NES. Released in 1985, the NES sold itself on its insane graphics capability, legendary games, and its appeal to kids. Naturally, Nintendo kept this momentum going forward by releasing another console, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, which boasted even better graphics, even better games, and more hours of fun. Nintendo really did save video games, and of course, they're still around making quality titles and consoles today. For the next couple of years, the gaming space will be run by Nintendo, Sega with their Genesis, and Sony with their PlayStation, all competing for the top spot, pushing technology forward, eventually leading to machines capable of 3D graphics. It was during this time that consoles started getting so good, it became even harder for consumers to predict what was next in the gaming space. When we entered this era of 3D graphics, games started getting a lot more cinematic and artistic, mirroring and at times rivaling the writing and shot composition seen in some of our favorite movies. Games were fully voice acted by professional actors alongside compelling stories. What came next was tech giant Microsoft, who just created their Xbox, which launched with Halo, an action epic that spawned a console-selling franchise and also spawned a not super successful TV show a couple decades later. On March 4, 2000, Sony launched their highest-selling console of all time, the PlayStation 2, which went on to sell over 150 million units worldwide. Nintendo was hitting a slower patch, releasing the GameCube, which had respectable games, but the PlayStation proved to be too popular, stealing the lead Nintendo had held for most of the 90s. Microsoft and Sony would go on to compete head-to-head in a rivalry that produced breakout exclusive titles like Uncharted and Gears of War. both massive action hits that gave players good reasons to get into this wild hobby. Today, this competition is still around, but it is nowhere near as felt as it used to be. It was a true war back then. After lots of consoles and some pretty innovative ideas, video games became massive. People waited outside, in tents, for stores to open just so they could get their hands on the next big title. That passion, that love, brings us to the present. Gamers are more excited now than ever before, and with so many different games coming from all over the world, it's hard not to find one that feels like it was made just for you. From playing on an Atari, if you could afford one, to the big PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, video games have come a long way. But what's your favorite video game? Be sure to share that passion in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to 5 Minute Flashback here on YouTube. And while you're at it, just go ahead and follow us on Instagram, X, and Facebook. And that's all for this incredible episode of 5 Minute Flashback.
This program was produced by ZTV at the University of Akron. Do you want to gain experience in video production, professional social media, or working with real clients? Visit the UA School of Communications online or follow us on social media to learn more. ZTV, make media, make a difference.